to get this business done. What can be financed medium term? Wayne rightfully said, typically large equipment and services that can be capitalized. We do cranes, we do John Deere cotton pickers, which I'll mention, I'll bring up a little story in a second here, in Brazil. We're doing cranes in Argentina, in Costa Rica. So anything that can be financed over 5, sometimes 7-year period. Medical equipment is a equipment that we can finance for 7 years under the Ex-Im Bank medium term for qualified buyers. And it can be used equipment as well. Ex-Im Bank has a group of engineers which reviews the products and make sure that they have a lifespan equal to the, or at least beyond the extent of the term loan that we provide. These are the types of industry sectors and exporters and countries that we have financed recently. I mentioned John Deere cotton pickers. In 2007, Banco de John Deere, they have a bank in Brazil, as some of you may know, they were overwhelmed with the demand from Brazilian cotton farmers for the state-of-the-art equipment because they wanted to go global. They wanted to become the global competitor in cotton industry, especially with China being such a large buyer. They didn't have the capacity to handle transactions to finance these large landholders, which was what they were. So they outsourced it to us. Out of the 154 cotton pickers they sold in Brazil in 2007, we financed, with Ex-Im Bank support, 54 of them, roughly over 40%, totaling about $12 million. Each cotton picker goes for about $350,000. These were to large landholders that were sole proprietorships. They did not have financial statements according to international accounting standards, so we had to bring our own accountants in to meet with them and to restructure the financial statements so they would represent, again, according to international accounting standards. Again, a number of U.S. exporters you may be familiar with. I think some of the more interesting ones that I want to touch upon are franchises. We've done Applebee's in El Salvador, Bennigan's in Panama, Dunkin' Donuts in Panama. We've done Four Point Sheraton in Mexico, because typically the franchisor, the U.S. company, will require that the franchisee purchase from a list of approved vendors. Those vendors are typically U.S. suppliers, all typically small companies. So we'll provide 5-year financing, if the buyer qualifies, for the importation of all that equipment. You know, the wall hangs, the ovens, everything that they need to bring in to make a Burger King in Mexico, for example. It costs about $500,000 of equipment financing is required to open a Burger King in Mexico. Medical equipment, radiology equipment, MRIs, beds for hospitals. We've done quite a bit in Brazil over the years. We're currently doing longwall mining machinery in Indonesia, and I mention that because we used to do quite a bit for Altos Hornos in Mexico before they went bankrupt, and I understand they're still bankrupt, but we've had those turned out all to be claims. We didn't like those claims. Anything else? Okay, just to give you an idea where we're active. Our most active market over the years has been Mexico, but this year Mexico has fallen off the cliff. Right now, Argentina was our largest market for this equipment financing. Our second largest market was Brazil. After that would be Costa Rica, Colombia, Peru, El Salvador, Dominican Republic. And we also do some countries. I get involved with those countries that are not Spanish or Portuguese speaking, like Indonesia or Turkey, Russia, places like that. Aren't I lucky? This gives you the idea who else is doing this business. These are last year's numbers. I'm sorry I don't have this year's numbers, but UPS Capital is the next largest user of this program. After that, John Deere Credit, they're no longer doing this right now. Most of this was for Kazakhstan and Russia. Hencorp, Diebold, ATMs, I don't think they're doing much right now for ATMs in Russia. M&T Bank, I think their numbers are way down. Cofin, GE has done some. Philips Medical, they do it themselves. So this is to get an idea who else is doing this business. The highlights of this program are that very attractive interest rates, number one. We can provide a LIBOR, a floating rate basis, or a fixed rate basis for the whole term of the credit. So it's at the option of the borrower, again, if they qualify. Our normal term is for 5 years, but it can be longer, semi-annual payments. There's an extended grace period. For many of the plastic extrusion equipment that we finance overseas, it takes sometimes several months to actually set up the equipment. So therefore, we can work with Ex-Im Bank that the principal repayment doesn't have to begin until 6 months after commissioning of the equipment as opposed to shipment. That gives the buyer some more time to get the machinery running and cash flow moving. Definitely more like the franchisee financing we've done. There are multiple vendors in that. You work with multiple vendors on the export side. Our rule of engagement is our minimum is $500,000. Ex-Im Bank itself doesn't have any minimum, but for reality purposes, let's say $500,000 is reality, because nobody's really too interested in the lower dollar amounts. It's just too much work. Typically for the smaller dollar amount financing, we're talking a smaller company, and they're even much more difficult to get approved because of all the credit underwriting we have to do on them. 15% down payment is required to the exporter. We've done a lot of co-insurance, Wayne, with Ex-Im Bank. We were the first ones to work in Brazil with the German equivalent of Ex-Im Bank Hermes for radiology and that type of equipment from Germany. We had several deals approved this year, first time that's ever been done. We've done with Canada, active insurance. So this is, as long as the equipment is being shipped out of the U.S., it's invoiced out of the U.S., and the contract is held with the U.S. company, there's a lot more flexibility than it used to be, we believe, than it has to be 85% U.S. content. So each deal has to be worked on its own merits. This is a good kicker here. If we're talking large machinery that has to be set up, we can now finance up to 30% qualified local costs. What does that mean? Well, installation costs. If the buyer wants to use local contractors to install the machinery, perhaps even some related civil works related to putting the machinery in, we can finance that. So 30% of the total contract value, let's say it's $1 million, we can do up to $300,000 of local costs included back into the financing. Very attractive feature. Most of our financing is going out like that nowadays. Not all the local costs are approved, but we get some of them.